Wait! I know you've already hit that dislike button and already started your all caps comment, so let me say this. I believe Christian McCaffrey was the best running back in the NFL last year. He was an absolute multi-dimensional weapon. I'm not some hater. You can go back and look if you want and see another video where I said McCaffrey got ripped off on his Heisman vote. I'm a big fan of this guy, but that doesn't mean I believe the Panthers should keep him. My question for you is this. Were you against paying David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell at the time, or Todd Gurley? Because they were once on top of the running back world, just like McCaffrey is now. They also once seemed like the unstoppable offensive weapon we know McCaffrey as today. So let's put down the pitchforks, take away that dislike you already put down in the first 3 seconds, and take a deep breath, and go over what needs to be said. We've got a curious quote from Panthers head coach Matt Rhule, and we'll go over why the Panthers can find a win-win scenario in a trade. An ace wide receiver is more valuable than a top running back. NFL fans know this. But when you consider other multifaceted dual-threat backs, the pay still isn't worth it. David Johnson was at one point being called a top 2 back in the league. In 2016, he led all running backs in receiving yards and was selected first team All-Pro. Sound familiar? McCaffrey just did the same thing. Johnson got an extension that ranked amongst the highest paid running backs in the league. And last season, he rushed for 345 yards with 370 receiving yards. That contract turned out terrible for the Cardinals, which is why that Texans deal, as we know, makes no sense, but that's a topic for another time. Le'Veon Bell was a multi-time All-Pro running back who many considered the best running back in the league for several years straight. The Jets handed him $35 million guaranteed with a max value of $61 million. And last season, Bell didn't eclipse 1,000 rushing yards or 500 receiving yards. Todd Gurley got the largest per year average in money for any running back, and the Rams eventually released him. So not only should teams be wary of paying big time money to running backs like the Titans were this offseason with Derrick Henry, but they should also be wary of paying receiving backs as well. Every one of these guys was arguably the most dominant back in the league at one point. And every contract has turned regrettable for the team that gave it to them. So when it really feels like McCaffrey could be the exception, you have to remember Bell, Johnson, Gurley, whoever it may be in the backfield at one time or another. Before last season, McCaffrey averaged 10.5 rushing attempts per game, but last year the Panthers upped it to almost 18 attempts. He's going to be getting a new coaching staff, so maybe that'll change something. But those attempts I said put him right in line with the other players I just listed. And that's where the fear of a slowdown sometime during his second contract could happen. Right now, McCaffrey is 23. That puts him right in the sweet spot for rushing yards. Here we can see the position's top 10 rushing yards leaders last year. Every one of them was 25 or younger. So judging by these stats, McCaffrey should have another couple years on top of the league, and his rookie contract has 1 year remaining, plus an option year in 2021. But the Panthers have pretty much made it clear that they're going into rebuild mode. David Newton of ESPN said, "The Panthers likely won't be successful this season or next in terms of wins. Head coach Matt Rhule, hired because he's considered a great rebuilder, went 2-10 his first season at Temple and 1-11 his first season at Baylor. Clearly, they're in it for the long run by signing Rhule to a 7-year contract. McCaffrey sure is a great deal right now, but 2 years from now, when the Panthers could possibly be getting closer to playoff contention, he's going to be ready for a big, fat contract." History is telling us that running backs on their second contracts with that amount of touches in both the rushing and receiving game begin to decline quickly. McCaffrey is most likely going to reset the entire market with the richest running back deal in NFL history when the time comes. I know you have every urge in you to say you don't obtain all-pro players like McCaffrey often, so it would be downright stupid to trade him. But just ask a Rams fan about Gurley. And you want to say he can basically play wide receiver and he's so dynamic in the passing game. And once again, ask a Cardinals fan about David Johnson, or better yet, ask a Texans fan how it feels to acquire that contract. My point is, it would have sounded just as crazy to say trade this guy for a high draft pick instead of keeping him, because right now he's your top playmaker. Rhule has even jokingly said, "I would trade my son Bryant if it was for the right people." I'm just saying you have to have that mindset, especially early on as a coach. For the Panthers, with the season McCaffrey just put together and with 2 possible years left before you have to pay him big money, right now would be the perfect time to deal him. Now on the other side of things, can you imagine what a team in win now mode would pay for McCaffrey? What do you think the Seahawks would give up to pair up Russell Wilson with the most dynamic running back in the game? Or the Chiefs? Or Ravens? Imagine those offenses. Or how about the Bucs filling that running back slot with McCaffrey to pair with the rest of that offense? We know Tom Brady loves his receiving backs. Maybe one of those teams can win a Super Bowl in that 2-year period. Plus, on a good team being surrounded by good players, that would mean less of a workload for McCaffrey, which would then extend his career. In the end, if your contending window closes and McCaffrey leaves to go get a big contract for another team, at least that'll fetch you a 3rd-round compensatory pick. If the Panthers can reel in a 1st-round pick and maybe more in a trade from a team desperate for an electric player to put them over the edge in the playoffs, then you'd have to think a trade could be worked out to become a win-win for both sides. With that 1st-round pick, the Panthers could use it to stockpile on talent for this year, and maybe after having a Matt Rhule 1st-year rebuild, can then go ahead and draft a quarterback with one of the top picks in the 2021 draft. Teddy Bridgewater's contract, I'm not sure if I would have signed him to that, but it is front-heavy, meaning that they could cut him after the 2nd year with minimal cap hits. That sets him up as most likely a bridge quarterback until they draft the man they want to take over the franchise. With the Panthers now losing Luke Kuechly and releasing Cam Newton, McCaffrey stands as by far the most marketable get butts in seats player left in Carolina. So maybe you're thinking it wouldn't really make sense for them to trade him because of the business side of things. Well, they're going to be drafting a quarterback either this year or next to become the next face of the franchise anyway, and star power hasn't stopped teams from trading players before. The Panthers aren't making the playoffs either this year or next, even with McCaffrey, so ticket sales and jersey sales aren't really going to be peaking. Panthers owner David Tepper has made a living off buying low and selling high. If he treats his NFL team anything like he did his previous investments, then he knows rebuilds can pay off big time over periods of time when done the right way. And right now it's time to sell one of his best performing assets. Christian McCaffrey's price has never been higher. So in the end, if the Panthers do keep McCaffrey, then congratulations, you'll have one of the best backs in the league for probably the next couple of years. Obviously, that's not a bad thing at all, but when the big money comes to play with running backs, recent similar players and contracts have proven it's not worth it. So you might as well deal him now and get a cheaper, valuable piece for the future. I hope McCaffrey can prove me wrong, but right now his prime years will be wasted on a rebuild. He belongs on a championship contender, where he can go and win playoff games, not throwaway games that just end up hurting a team's future draft selection. If Tepper and Rhule are in this for the long haul, then trading McCaffrey is probably the best thing to do at this time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Did this make any sense to you, or are you still ready to rage comment about how much of an idiot I am?
I am once again asking for your
Twitter
support.